Hi there, Michael Senkner here, talking about Study Buddy 3.0. This is our proposal for decentralizing assessment. This could really change the world. We are idealistic. There's my contact info. Please get in touch if you want to get involved in this exciting project. So here's the deal. We are developing a new way to think about testing, as in school testing. We want to get 30 people involved in a pilot project to develop this new way of thinking about education. And we'd like you to get involved. Here I am. Someone drew a cartoon of me. Here I am with shorter hair. Here's my CryptoPunk look. I'm an educator, not a programmer. My education's in humanities, elementary ed, and educational technology. And I really like the nuts and bolts of pedagogy, which is the art and science of teaching. And there's a link to my course development portfolio and other educational development projects I've been in on if you're interested. So how this happened is that we were involved in doing some homeschooling once COVID started. And we weren't actually being supervised by schools. So that was actually decentralized education, and that's the 3.0 part of the title. We were working with kids, we were doing projects, and it was very hands-on. And as we experimented with this over a period of many months, we found that these three elements here came into this model that looks like this. It has three parts. One part is a show and tell. And this is still a great way to teach and learn. You've seen kids doing this, but it's awesome for adults as well. You, as the learner, you're momentarily in charge. You're teaching when you're doing your show and tell. You're building skill for communicating. And people can also see what you know. So that's the assessment part. And everyone watching is also learning from your teaching. Now, are you trying to learn something in your life? Can you imagine wanting to do a show and tell with things that you're learning? The second element of our model is group work. And group work is really natural, but many of us have a negative association with group work because in schools it's usually poorly done. But well done, group work can really motivate and support people. That's the study buddy part, like the exercise buddy part, where you're motivating and supporting each other. And also group work leads to creativity and people thinking together, which is synergy. Now, would you like to be in a group of two other people learning whatever you want with them? That's what this project is about. The third part of our model is a learning contract. And learning contracts nowadays are very common in K-12, but not usually for groups of people. And like any other contract, it brings in elements of accountability and predictability. And we are calling this kind of grouping trifecta, these three people learning together. Although each person is learning their own thing. You're not necessarily working together like a group in school. Each person is doing their own thing, but you are there to check in on each other. That's the study buddy concept. Would you be willing to agree to following through on learning something that you actually want to learn? Especially if you've paid for a course and all you need to do is practice and you don't get around to practicing. If you had some help applying it in your life, would you be willing to enter into an agreement like that with two other people? Maybe this is for you. So this is the whole model. And we are looking at developing this through Cardano in the weeks, months, and years to come, and bringing it out on the blockchain. This project is just to get the ball rolling, just to do a proof of concept. So on the left, you see the educational artifact. An artifact is something that shows what someone was able to do. It's evidence. And we're calling this evidence a proof of progress. It's not showing that you are awesome at that thing. It's only showing that you are making progress in learning about that thing. And we see this as people making a video, which would be kind of a little educational selfie. And that selfie would become an NFT, which would be minted, and that would be called your proof of progress credential. And you could actually take that credential to, for example, a potential employer and say, here's what I know. I mean, if it was appropriate to the job, of course. On the right side, we see the pod, which are the groups, and that's the three learners triangulating and validating each other. The validation comes in from, yes, it looks like you did make some progress, and yes, you are the person that made that artifact. Now, as far as selling it goes, you would be on your own for selling it to, let's say, a potential employer, but it'd be very, very specific to that job. So the evidence would be better than a certificate, really, right? But in your group, you're validating, which means, yes, that person made progress. You're not evaluating. You're not giving a mark. You're not grading each other. You're just saying, did you show up for it and learn something? And then the agreement, a smart learning contract. Eventually, this will be a smart contract. For now, we're kind of doing that manually. We want to see how the contract needs to work. But we know that it will be an agreement, and there will be a process, there'll be notifications, and there will be specific questions which will be provided. So the standard set of questions actually structures this activity, this reflection activity. So these questions are very specific, and they come from research that I've done over many years on thinking protocols. Thinking protocols are kind of algorithms for guiding us through a thought process. One of the most famous of these thinking protocols is Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats. It's a very interesting approach that you can use to think about something. He also came up with plus minus interesting, PMI. And there are other thinking protocols that people have come up with. I've been researching that. So these questions are based specifically on that kind of research. I see this as being an emerging standard, like Charles Hoskinson talks about emerging standards. I see this as an emerging standard for reflecting on any kind of learning experience. And the idea here is that thinking about the thinking makes the learning more effective. Thinking about the thinking is called metacognition. So these are metacognitive type questions. So here they are. You would say, what are you learning about? Let's say you're learning about gardening. Or let's say you're learning about programming smart contracts. Or let's say you're learning about Spanish verbs. Whatever it is. So you would say what you're learning about, and then you would show your artifact. You would point at the thing that you made that in the process of learning whatever you were learning. You point at the cake if you're learning how to make a cake. You point at your list of verbs that you memorized if you're learning Spanish. Or you point at your code if you're learning how to code. Then the question is, what did you learn? And here we're not saying, what did you do well and what could you have done better? That's the usual questions for reflection. But here we're asking people to go beyond that and say, no, what did I actually learn? And this is a really good question. Got to try it, right? Then next question, how can you use that? You learned how to bake a cake. Well, you could maybe use that to bake bread. Or you learned how to program this thing. You could use that to program this other kind of thing. What did you learn about yourself? This is not necessarily philosophical or psychological, although it could be. But it could also be just like, what do you prefer? What's your preferred learning strategy here? How did you go? Did you like how you went about it? Did you manage your workplace in a good way? Did you like how you approached the task? Did you find you needed more time? Would you like to improve anything in your own process next time? And then last question, what questions do you have now, right? How do you want to follow up? So these are the questions. And anybody can use these questions, by the way. They are released by Creative Commons, which means anyone can use them. Just give me a credit if you do use this list. Okay, just a word about validation versus evaluation. So here, you as a learner, you're validating each other. You're not evaluating. You're not grading each other. The validation answers these yes/no questions. Let's say you're looking at my artifact. All you would say is, are you convinced that I made progress? Yes or no? And are you convinced that I'm the one that made this artifact? Yes or no? That's all you have to do as far as validation. So then if you wanted to use your artifact, let's say to apply for a job, it wouldn't be that the school would be saying you are good enough. It would be you yourself are saying it's good enough based on the actual work that you would be showing the employer, for example. Okay, so this is more technical about the credentialing part. You can skip this if you want to. And here's the infrastructure that eventually we'll need for this model. Eventually, we'll have a minting infrastructure, a search infrastructure, and a communication infrastructure to connect these people. The learner, the requester, that would be, for example, an employer, and then your group. So the purpose of the group is just to tell the employer, the potential employer, yes, that's the person that made that thing. And then you would negotiate with that employer whether that thing that you made shows them enough that they would hire you. And if not, they could ask for more. Because if it's just a selfie, it only takes 2 minutes or 3 minutes to make it, send it off. But it's very focused on what they need to see. Okay, so that's the idea here. And can you imagine if this is how education worked? And after a while, you'd have all of these groups interacting, 3 people working at a time, and then over time, people would change groups, and the groups could be interacting, and they'd be searching keywords for each other, learning from each other. It would be an amazing learning ecosystem. Would it be awesome to be in there? I think it would. It would be a self-qualified network of smart and cool people. So this is our proposal, Study Buddy 3.0. So in this proposal, we are looking for 30 people who would like to get involved. So that means 10 or 12 of these trifecta groups. 3 people working on whatever you want to work on. It doesn't have to even be exactly the same thing, and you don't have to be at exactly the same level. And if you want to bring your own group, you can, or if you want us to, find you partners, we will. That's what the funding is for. So please get in touch if you want to get involved, and please vote for us. Thanks.